everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to my presentation where I'll be going over option B, which is the one I chose, the state of the art review. So for my state of the art review, I decided to focus on internal communication as it's very relevant to the HR field, which is what I'm hoping to pursue with my degree. My goal was to find the relationship between internal communication and employee engagement and satisfaction, specifically how it would impact those two factors in a workplace. What I found in the main themes was that there was positive internal communication, and that significantly improves satisfaction and engagement. Transparent and empathetic leadership also improves these factors as well because it raises the trust in the organization, and the importance of social exchange theory and sense making. So, for my state of the art review, I decided to focus on internal communication as it's very relevant to the HR field, which is what I'm hoping to pursue with my degree. My goal was to find the relationship between internal communication and employee engagement and satisfaction, specifically how it would impact those two factors. Within my paper, to also highlight what I found, I made this diagram to show how integral internal communication is, especially if it's positive. There was a trickle down impact essentially because the research showed that internal communication was directly impacting the work culture, which would then impact employee engagement, which also impacted employee satisfaction, which I described in my paper as a trickle down effect. There's good and bad to this though, because it shows how integral positive internal communication is, but it also highlights that if there is negative internal communication, how much of a detriment that will be to a company, its culture, and employee engagement will decrease along with employee satisfaction will also go down. This then leads to the impact for the human resources field. HR managers and teams often act as intermediaries between leadership and employees, which is extremely important for measuring the success of certain internal communication strategies between the two, as well as it can help inform leadership on how to best conduct themselves. HR can see when employees are beginning to struggle with engagement and satisfaction due to this relationship. And because of it, they can help cultivate a better organizational setting through two-way communication, influencing leadership to make better internal communication decisions, and also enacting better internal communication strategies. So, my experience working on this research paper was very interesting because it was the first time that I've done something of this scope with so many sources. And originally, I was struggling to find sufficient articles that met the requirements until the discussion post where I was recommended to utilize the database. And oh my gosh, I wish I used it from the start. It made everything so much easier. It was easier to find good quality articles, and it sped up the rate that I was finding journals and books, especially. Number two, I wish I gave myself more time. I did start a lot sooner than I would on a normal project, but I think if I gave myself even more time, I could have realized the weaker aspects of some of the research I had gathered that I talk about in the critique. But also, it would have given me a lot less stress. And then number three is that synthesizing the information was very overwhelming for me until I worked out a system that worked for me personally. I can show you guys on the next slide, but I definitely wish I gave myself more time. I think that would have made this a lot easier for myself. So this is how my research looked. Initially, I would go through each article and gather quotes and different things that align with what I was researching. And I had color coding and highlighting, and I printed them all out. Second was that I grouped the articles into which category of my research themes that they fit into, such as internal communication, employee engagement, employee satisfaction, and at the bottom, like human resources or where they overlay, social exchange theory, that sort of thing. And then third, I had to make myself a checklist to make sure that I had used all the articles, and they were numbered too. So if I went to step number 2 and looked at which author I needed, I could find which one it was on my Google Doc. I'm sure there's a more refined way to do this, but it was the one that worked best for me. So I was running around with a lot of papers during this process. If I were to make any recommendations to someone who is going to be doing this assignment in the future, or if I could go back in time and tell myself, my first recommendation would be to utilize all the time available. It was really tricky because I had a lot of family events. I had a pet medical emergency that happened this semester, and it's really difficult to start a final so early. But I regret not using as much time as I could have because it really stressed me out. while I'm proud of my work, I think the stress that it caused me would have been very alleviated had I started earlier. Recommendation 2, which is what everyone was being told from the start, is use the database. I should have used it from the start, especially on that discussion post where we chose 8 articles. That's where I received the advice to use it, and it saved my life. So I definitely would recommend using the database. And that is my presentation. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to see what you all created with your state of the art reviews or interviews. Any feedback would be much appreciated, especially in regards to how you guys work through having so many sources. Thank you so much. Happy holidays and hope you guys have a great semester.